One anonymous text destroyed 18 years of marriage in seconds. The photo of my wife Serafina with another man was shocking, but her reaction when I showed her the evidence? Pure evil. What she said next made me realize I never knew the woman I married. And neither did our teenage son Julian, who'd been protecting me. My name is Elias Thorne. I'm 44 years old, and I used to think I had it all figured out. I work as an IT manager at a mid-sized tech startup in Denver, Colorado. For the past 18 years, I've been married to Serafina, and we have a 17-year-old son, Julian. On paper, we look like the American dream. Nice house in the suburbs, decent jobs, kid getting ready for college. But as I learned the hard way, paper doesn't tell the whole story. The morning everything started to unravel was a Tuesday in late October. I remember because the leaves were just starting to turn and Serafina had complained about needing to rake them before her parents, Klaus and Ingrid, visited for Thanksgiving. She was rushing around the kitchen, gulping down coffee and checking her phone every few seconds. Nothing unusual there. She'd always been a multitasker. Julian's going to be late again if he doesn't get moving, Serafina said, not looking up from her screen. I called upstairs to our son, who had been struggling lately with getting school on time. His grades have been slipping too, and we've been having more arguments about his attitude and responsibility. Typical teenage stuff, or so we thought. Got a big presentation today, Serafina announced, finally putting her phone in her purse. The Peterson account. If this goes well, I might finally get that promotion to regional manager. She worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company, and she'd been gunning for this promotion for months. Long hours, weekend meetings, client dinners that ran late into the night. I'd been supportive, even proud of her ambition. But I'd be lying if I said I hadn't put strain on our family. You'll nail it, I told her, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. You've been preparing for weeks. She smiled, but something about it seemed forced. Thanks, babe. Don't wait up tonight. The team's planning to celebrate afterwards. Win or lose. After she left, I sat in the kitchen with my second cup of coffee, watching Julian shuffle around upstairs. The house felt different lately, though I couldn't put my finger on why. There was a tension that hadn't been there before, like we were all walking on eggshells around each other. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. At first, I thought it might be spam, but curiosity got the better of me. What I saw made my blood run cold. You deserve to know the truth about your wife. Attached was a photo that would change everything. I stared at my phone screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. The photo showed Serafina sitting at what looked like an upscale bar downtown, leaning close to a man I'd never seen before. Too close. His hand was resting on her thigh, and she was laughing at something he'd said. The timestamp showed it was from last night, the same night she'd supposedly been celebrating with her work team. My hand started shaking. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and walked to the window, trying to process what I'd just seen. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was an old photo. Or maybe the guy was just a colleague and the angle made it look worse than it was, but deep down I knew I was grasping at straws. The phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. This isn't the first time. She's been lying to you for months. This time there were 3 more photos. Serafina getting into a car with the same man. Serafina walking into a hotel lobby, her hand in his. Serafina kissing him goodnight outside what looked like his apartment building. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. The room started spinning, and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. 18 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. My wife sneaking around behind my back like some teenager. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could sit in meetings and pretend everything was normal when my world was falling apart. Instead, I spent the day going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, bank statements, credit card bills, her social media accounts, anything that might give me more pieces of the puzzle. What I found made my stomach turn. Hotel charges on our joint credit card that Serafina had explained away as client meetings. Restaurant bills from places we'd never been together. Gas charges from across town, nowhere near her office or any of her usual haunts. The worst part was how stupid I felt. All those late nights, all those weekend work events, all those times she'd come home smelling like someone else's cologne and brushed off my questions with a laugh and a kiss. I trusted her completely, and she'd been playing me for a fool. Julian came home from school around 3:30, slamming the door and stomping up to his room without a word. Normally, I would have called after him, asked about his day, maybe try to start a conversation about his grades. But today, I couldn't handle another confrontation. Around 5, my phone rang. It was Serafina. "Hey babe, just want to let you know the presentation went great," Serafina said, her voice bright and cheerful. "The client loved our proposal." "That's wonderful." I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm going to be late again tonight. The team wants to take me out to celebrate, and I can't really say no to my future colleagues." You know, future colleagues, right? I wondered if she even remembered the lies she told me, or if deception had become so natural that she didn't think about it anymore. "Sure thing. Have fun." After I hung up, I sat in a quiet house and tried to figure out what to do next. Confront her immediately, hire a private investigator, pack my bags, and leave. None of the options seemed real. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let her make a fool of me anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos again. Serafina laughing with another man, her hand on his chest, looking at him the way she used to look at me. By 4 a.m, I gave up and went downstairs to my home office. I pulled out a notebook and started writing down everything I could remember from the past few months. Every late meeting, every weekend conference, every time she'd come home with some excuse about traffic or a client dinner running long. The pattern was clearer now that I knew what to look for. I opened my laptop and started going through her finances more carefully. What I found made my jaw clench. 3 separate hotel charges over the past 2 months. All of them downtown. Restaurant bills from places I'd never heard of. Even a charge for flowers. Flowers she'd never brought home. The most damning evidence came from our phone records. I pulled up our family plan online and started scrolling through Serafina's calls and texts. There was one number that appeared over and over, sometimes for hours at a time, late-night calls that went on until 2 or 3 in the morning. I wrote the number down and did a reverse lookup. The name that came back made my blood boil, Marcus Brandt. A quick Google search showed he was a regional sales director at a competing pharmaceutical company, married with 2 kids, according to his LinkedIn profile. My hands balled into fists. This guy was destroying 2 families. And for what? A cheap thrill. Around 7, I heard Julian stumbling around upstairs getting ready for school. I closed the laptop and went to make coffee, trying to act normal. When my son came down, he barely grunted a greeting. "Julian, we need to talk about your grades," I said, attempting to maintain some semblance of normal parenting. "Whatever, Dad. I'm handling it," Julian replied, grabbing a piece of toast. "Your mother and I are worried about you." Julian stopped chewing and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Are you?" Because it seems like Mom's been pretty distracted lately. The way he said it made me wonder if he'd noticed something, too. Kids pick up on tension better than adults sometimes. "What do you mean by that?" Julian shrugged. "Nothing. Just that she's never around anymore." After he left for school, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Serafina until I had all the facts. If she wanted to play games, I'd play them better. I called in sick again and spent the day putting together a timeline of her deception. By evening, I had a file folder thick with evidence. Bank statements, phone records, even screenshots of the photos the anonymous sender had provided. I wasn't some naive husband anymore. I was building a case. When Serafina came home around 9 o'clock, claiming another client dinner, I was ready. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek like nothing had changed. "Productive?" I replied, watching her face carefully. "Very productive." The next morning, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week earlier. I was going to follow my wife. Serafina left for work at her usual time, claiming she had morning meetings with potential clients. I waited 15 minutes, then got in my car and drove to her office building. Her BMW wasn't in the parking lot. I felt like a private detective in some cheesy movie, but I didn't care. I needed to know where she really was. I drove to the Marriott downtown, the hotel that kept showing up on our credit card statements. Sure enough, there was her car in the parking garage. My heart pounded as I found a spot where I could watch the entrance without being seen. At 10:30, Serafina walked out of the hotel lobby with Marcus Brandt. They were laughing, holding hands like a couple of teenagers. The sight of it made me want to punch something, but I forced myself to stay calm and keep watching. They got into a silver Mercedes and drove to a coffee shop across town. I followed at a distance, parking where I could see them through the window. They sat close together, her hand on his arm, looking at something on his phone. I took photos with my cell phone. The quality wasn't great, but it was clear enough to see what was happening. My wife of 18 years was having an affair, and now I had proof. After an hour, they separated. Serafina headed toward her actual office, while Marcus drove in the opposite direction. I followed Serafina, watching her park and walk in her building like she'd been there all morning. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called the divorce attorney. The receptionist scheduled me for a consultation the following week. Just making the appointment felt like stepping off a cliff, but I knew I had to protect myself. When I got home, Julian was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his homework spread out in front of him. For once, he actually seemed to be working on it. "How was school today?" I asked, trying to sound like a normal father. "Okay, I guess." Julian looked up at me, and I could see something troubled in his eyes. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure, son. What's on your mind?" Julian fidgeted with his pencil. "Do you and Mom, are you guys having problems?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. Things just feel different lately. Mom's never around, and when she is, she seems distant. And you've been acting weird, too." I sat down across from him, trying to figure out how much to say. "Your mother and I are going through a rough patch, but that's not your fault." "Okay. Sometimes adults have problems they need to work through." Julian nodded, but I could see he wasn't buying the sanitized version. "Is she cheating on you?" The blunt question caught me off guard. "Julian, that's not." "Because I saw her last week," Julian continued, his voice quiet but steady. "At the mall with some guy. They were holding hands." My world tilted. My own son had seen his mother's betrayal, and he'd been carrying that burden alone. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Julian's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want to hurt you, and I kept hoping. I was wrong." The weekend came and went in a haze of forced normalcy. Serafina played the perfect wife and mother, making pancakes on Saturday morning, suggesting we all go see a movie together, asking about Julian's college applications. The performance was flawless, and that made it even more sickening. On Monday morning, I made my move. After Serafina left for work, I called Marcus Brandt's office directly. "Elias Thorne," I told the secretary. "I need to speak with Marcus about my wife, Serafina. It's urgent." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne, but Marcus is in meetings all morning. Tell him it's about the photos. He'll make time." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Listen, I don't know what you think." Marcus's voice was nervous, aggressive. "I know everything." I cut him off. The hotel meetings, the restaurants, the lies. I have photos, phone records, credit card statements, everything. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly a minute. "What do you want?" Marcus finally asked. "I want you to stay away from my wife. End it today, or I'll make sure both your employers and your wife know exactly what kind of man you are." "You can't threaten me." "That's not a threat. That's a promise. You have 24 hours to cut all contact with Serafina, or everyone in your life will know what you've been doing." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger and adrenaline. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of the situation. That evening, Serafina came home earlier than usual. She seemed agitated, checking her phone constantly and barely touching her dinner. "Everything okay at work?" I asked innocently. "Fine," she snapped, then caught herself. "Sorry, just a stressful day. Some client issues." Around 9, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and declined the call, but I caught a glimpse of the name. Marcus. "Who was that?" I asked. "Nobody important. Probably a spam call." The phone rang again. This time, Serafina turned it off completely. "Persistent spam caller," I observed. Serafina forced a laugh. "Yeah, they're getting out of hand these days." I went to bed that night knowing the wheels were in motion. Whatever Marcus had told her, whatever panic was setting in, it was only the beginning. The next morning, Serafina announced she was taking a sick day. "I think I'm coming down with something," she said, though she looked perfectly healthy to me. After Julian left for school, Serafina disappeared into her home office and spent most of the day on the phone with the door closed. I could hear her voice through the walls, tense, urgent, sometimes rising to barely controlled panic. By evening, I knew it was time. I had all the evidence I needed, and Serafina's behavior told me that her affair was probably over thanks to my conversation with Marcus. But that wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. I waited until after dinner when Julian was upstairs doing homework. Serafina was in the living room pretending to watch television, but actually staring at her silent phone. "Serafina," I said, sitting down across from her. "We need to talk." She looked up, and I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew. "What about?" she asked, but her voice was barely a whisper. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos from the hotel. "About this." Serafina's face went white when she saw the photo. For a moment, she just stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. "Where did you get this?" she finally managed. "Does it matter?" I asked, keeping my voice calm and steady. "The question is, how long has this been going on?" "Elias, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'd love to hear you explain 6 months of lying to my face. I'd love to hear you explain the hotel charges, the secret phone calls, the money you've been spending on your boyfriend." Serafina started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd been caught. "It's not what it looks like." She sobbed. "It's not. Because it looks like my wife has been having an affair while I've been working 60-hour weeks trying to provide for our family. You don't understand. Things between us have been so difficult lately. We barely talk anymore. We never spend time together. So that gives you the right to betray me, to lie to our son, to steal money from our savings account to pay for your affair?" Serafina's tears stopped abruptly. "How do you know about the money?" "I know everything, Serafina. Bank records, phone calls, text messages. I even know about your promotion celebration that never happened because you were too busy celebrating with Marcus Brandt." She flinched at the mention of his name. "I want to congratulate you." I continued, my voice getting harder. "You got exactly what you wanted. That promotion you've been chasing for months. Too bad you won't get to enjoy it because I showed Marcus some very interesting photos yesterday. Let's see how you explain the situation to HR when they start asking questions about interdepartmental relationships." "You didn't," Serafina whispered, her face going even paler. "Oh, I did. And that's just the beginning. See, I've been documenting everything. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be the faithful wife. My lawyer says I have an excellent case for divorce based on adultery and financial misconduct." Serafina stood up abruptly, anger replacing the fear. "You can't do this to me. We have a family together. Think about Julian." "I am thinking about Julian. I'm thinking about what kind of example you've been setting for him. I'm thinking about how you've been lying to him just as much as you've been lying to me. This is all your fault," Serafina shouted, her mask finally slipping completely. "If you had been a better husband, if you had paid attention to me, none of this would have happened." "There it is," I said, standing up to face her. The real Serafina. No more tears, no more apologies. Just blame everyone else for your choices. "I made one mistake." 6 months isn't a mistake, Serafina. It's a choice. A choice you made every single day. From upstairs came the sound of Julian's bedroom door opening. We both looked toward the stairs as our son appeared, his face a mixture of anger and pain. "I heard everything," Julian said, his voice shaking. "Mom, how could you do this to us?" Serafina reached toward him. "Julian, sweetheart, let me explain." "Don't," Julian said, stepping back. "Just don't. I already knew about your boyfriend. I've known for weeks." The look of shock on Serafina's face was almost comical. "You want to know what your affair did to our family?" I asked Serafina. "It turned our 17-year-old son into a liar, too. He's been carrying your secret, protecting you from the consequences of your actions." Julian looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have told you sooner." "No, son. This isn't your responsibility. This is between your mother and me." I turned back to Serafina, who was now crying again. But I felt nothing for her tears anymore. You have until Friday to find somewhere else to live, I told her. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. The next morning, Serafina was gone. She'd packed 2 suitcases and left while Julian and I were asleep. No note, no explanation, just empty closet space and the lingering smell of her perfume. Julian found me in the kitchen staring at my coffee. She's really gone, he said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, she's gone. Good, Julian said, then caught himself. I mean, it's better this way, right? I pulled my son into a hug. It's going to be hard for a while, but yes, it's better. We deserve honesty in this house. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Serafina's sister, Elsa, calling from Seattle. Elias, what the hell is going on? Elsa demanded. Serafina showed up at my door this morning crying hysterically, saying you threw her out over some misunderstanding. Did she tell you about the affair? Silence on the other end. What affair? Elsa finally asked. But her voice had changed. I gave Elsa the basic facts, the photos, the hotel meetings, the lies. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. She told me you were having marriage problems, but she said it was because you'd become cold and distant. Elsa, she stole money from our savings account to pay for hotel rooms with her boyfriend. This wasn't about marriage problems. Oh God, Elias, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I need you to know that Julian and I are doing okay. We're going to get through this. What about Serafina? She's a mess right now. Serafina made her choices. Now she has to live with the consequences. That afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer, Liam O'Connell. Serafina had hired an attorney and was already trying to claim that I'd forced her out of the house without cause. She's going to fight the adultery claim, Liam explained. Her attorney is saying the photos could be doctored and that there's no concrete proof of physical infidelity. What about the hotel receipts? The phone records? All circumstantial. According to them, they're going to argue that she was having emotional difficulties and made some poor choices, but nothing that constitutes adultery under state law. I felt my jaw clench. Even now, Serafina was trying to rewrite history. What do? We stick to the facts and let the evidence speak for itself. In the meantime, don't let her back into the house without supervision and document everything. That evening, Julian and I ordered pizza and watched a football game. It was the first time in months that the house felt peaceful. No tension, no lies, no walking on eggshells. Dad, can I ask you something? Julian said during halftime. Anything. Do you think Mom ever loved us? The question hit me like a punch. Of course she did, son. She still does in her own way. People can love their family and still make terrible choices. I don't understand how someone can do what she did if they really love you. Neither do I, Julian. Neither do I. My phone buzzed with a text from Serafina. Please let me come home. We can work this out. I showed Julian the message. What are you going to say? He asked. Nothing. Actions have consequences, and she's just starting to learn what hers are going to cost her. I deleted the message without responding. A week later, Serafina's parents, Klaus and Ingrid Schmidt, showed up at her front door. I hadn't seen Klaus and Ingrid in months. Not since last Christmas when things were still relatively normal. Elias, we need to talk, Klaus said, his face stern. I invited them in, but kept the conversation in the living room where Julian could hear if he needed to. I wasn't going to let anyone ambush me in my own home. Serafina told us about the divorce. Ingrid said, her voice tight with disapproval. She says you're being unreasonable. Did she tell you why I filed for divorce? Klaus shifted uncomfortably. She said there were some misunderstandings, some trust issues. Trust issues. I pulled out my phone and showed them one of the hotel photos. This is your daughter with another man. For 10 months. She's been lying to all of us. Ingrid gasped and covered her mouth. Klaus's face went red with anger, but I could tell it wasn't directed at me. Serafina told us you were the one having an affair, Ingrid whispered. She told you what? The audacity of it left me speechless for a moment. She said you've been distant and secretive, coming home late from work, and she suspected you were seeing someone. Klaus explained, looking embarrassed. Your daughter has been stealing money from our savings account to pay for hotel rooms with her boyfriend. She's been lying to Julian and me every single day for almost a year, and now she's trying to make me the villain. Julian appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. "Tell them, Julian," I said. "Tell your grandparents what you saw." Julian looked at his grandparents, then at me, and I could see him make the decision to speak the truth. "I saw Mom with another man at the mall," Julian said quietly. "They were holding hands and kissing, and I heard her on the phone with him late at night, telling him she loved him." Ingrid started crying. Klaus put his arm around her and looked at me with something that might have been respect. "We had no idea," Klaus said. "Serafina painted a very different picture. She's good at that. She's been painting different pictures for months." "What do you need from us?" Klaus asked. The question surprised me. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Julian is our grandson, your family. Regardless of what Serafina has done, what do you need from us to get through this?" I felt a knot in my chest loosen slightly. "Just don't let her turn you against us. Julian's going to need his grandparents, especially now." Ingrid wiped her eyes and hugged Julian fiercely. "We would never abandon you, sweetheart. Never." After they left, Julian and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I was scared they'd believe her lies," Julian admitted. "So was I. But the truth has a way of coming out, especially when good people are involved." "Are we going to be okay, Dad?" I put my arm around my son's shoulders. "Yeah, we're going to be fine. Better than fine, actually. We're going to build something honest here. Something we can both be proud of." That night, I got another text from Serafina. "My parents won't even take my calls now. You've poisoned everyone against me." This time, I did respond. I didn't have to poison anyone. I just told them the truth. She didn't text back. 3 months later, we were sitting in a sterile conference room downtown, facing Serafina and her lawyer, Genevieve Dubois, across a mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars. Serafina looked different, thinner, older somehow, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her attorney, a sharp-dressed woman, had been making unreasonable demands for weeks. Half the house, half my retirement fund, alimony payments that would have left Julian and me barely scraping by. "My client is willing to accept 60% of the marital assets," Genevieve Dubois announced, as if she were doing us a favor. My lawyer, Liam O'Connell, didn't even blink. "Your client committed adultery and stole money from the family savings account. She's lucky we're not pursuing criminal charges for theft." Serafina finally spoke up, her voice shaky. "Elias, please. I made mistakes, but I'm Julian's mother. I need something to start over with. You should have thought about that before you decided to blow up our family," I replied calmly. The meeting dragged on for 2 hours, but eventually Serafina's position became clear. She had no real leverage. The evidence of her affair was overwhelming, and her theft of our savings had been documented down to the penny. In the end, she agreed to a settlement that split our assets 40/60ths in my favor, with her getting the smaller share. She would have supervised visitation with Julian until he turned 18 and no alimony, since the divorce was based on her adultery. As we left the building, Julian was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. "How'd it go, Dad?" he asked. "It's over. She signed the papers." Julian nodded, but I could see the mixed emotions on his face. Despite everything, she was still his mother. "Are you okay?" I asked him. "Yeah, it's just weird, like this is really the end of our family as we knew it." "No, son. This is the beginning of our family, as it should be, built on truth and trust." That evening, we had dinner at my parents' house. Mom had made pot roast, and Dad kept the conversation light, talking about Julian's college applications and my plans to renovate the guest room. "You two seem happier," Mom observed as we were clearing the dishes. She was right. The constant tension was gone, replaced by something I hadn't felt in months: peace. A week later, I got a text from Serafina. "Can I see Julian this weekend?" I showed Julian the message. "It's up to you." He thought about it for a long time. "Maybe, but only if you're there, too. I'm not ready to be alone with her yet." "That's fair. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." "Thanks, Dad, for everything. For fighting for us, for not letting her destroy our family completely." I hugged my son, feeling grateful for the man he was becoming despite everything he'd been through. "We're going to be just fine, Julian. Better than fine." 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Julian graduated from high school as valedictorian. I sat in the auditorium watching my son give his speech about perseverance and integrity and felt prouder than I'd ever felt in my life. Serafina was there, too, sitting 3 rows behind me with her sister, Elsa. We had reached a place where we could be civil for Julian's sake, though I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no hurt, just indifference. After the ceremony, Julian found me in the crowd of parents and graduates. "We did it, Dad," he said, grinning as he showed me his diploma. "You did it, son. All on your own. Not all on my own. You were there every step of the way." Serafina approached cautiously. "Julian, I'm so proud of you," she said quietly. "Thanks, Mom," Julian replied. But there was distance in his voice that hadn't been there a year ago. She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something like regret in her eyes. "Elias, I know I don't have a right to ask, but do you think someday you might be able to forgive me?" I looked at this woman who had once been the center of my world, who had shared my dreams and my bed for 18 years, who had helped me raise the incredible young man standing beside me. "I already have forgiven you, Serafina," I said honestly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending what you did was okay. It just means I'm not going to let your choices poison the rest of my life." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked away with her sister. That fall, Julian started college at Colorado State University on a full academic scholarship. The house felt empty without him, but it was a good kind of empty. The emptiness of possibilities rather than loss. I started dating again, carefully and slowly. Nothing serious yet, but I was learning to trust my instincts again, to believe that not everyone would lie to me the way Serafina had. Rory Fitzgerald, my best friend who had supported me through the worst of it, often came over on weekends to watch football and eat too much pizza. "You know what I like about you now?" he said one Sunday afternoon. "What's that?" "You're not walking on eggshells anymore. For years, you were always worried about saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, setting Serafina off. Now you just exist. It's nice to see." He was right. I'd forgotten what it felt like to live without constantly analyzing every word, every action, every expression for signs of displeasure or deception. That Christmas, Julian came home from college full of stories about his classes, his friends, his plans for the future. Serafina called on Christmas Eve, as we'd agreed, and spoke to Julian for 20 minutes while I decorated the tree. After he hung up, Julian sat beside me on the couch. "She asked if I thought you'd ever remarry," he said. "What did you tell her?" "I told her, I hope you would. I told her, you deserve to be happy." I looked at my son, almost a man now, wise beyond his years, stronger because of what he'd endured. "I am happy," I said. "Right here, right now. I'm happier than I've been in years." "Good," Julian said. "Because you deserve it, Dad. You really do." As I sat there in my living room watching snow fall outside the window, I realized he was right. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had also freed me to build something better, something honest, something real. And that was worth everything I'd lost.